Good morning, Ms. Cole. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can see and hear you.
Hey, Kyla.
Hey, how are you?
Can you hear me? Hi, Gwen.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
If you say
We know
so.
Shander won't be here today. So, don't quite have a quorum yet. At 9:30.
Good morning.
Hey,
Morning.
Shana. I never know when anybody's going to pop up on the screen. Hey, Kendall.
Hi.
How's it going, y'all?
Good.
Pretty good. I guess the only one we really need is Glenn. I assume he's coming on board shortly.
Wow, that's sad news. It sounds like this might be my last meeting, guys.
I'm gonna join you, Kendall.
Well, mine isn't necessarily by choice. The mayor offered to reappoint me, and I accepted it. And then there was an issue on the qualification. Apparently, if you chair a PAC, you can't get reappointed to a board. And I thought that because my PAC doesn't deal in any city politics, that it wouldn't be an issue. And it looks like I'd have to either shut my PAC down or jump off the board. So I'm not going to be able to get reappointed, guys.
Oh, wow.
Ken, I'm sorry to hear that, and I was
Yeah.
sorry to hear that Gwen is not going to be reappointed because she has chosen not to be, and we are going to very, very much miss Gwen, and I understand, but I'm going to miss not seeing you, Gwen. And Shane and I have personal reasons. That means we have to finish those rules.
We'll get it done.
Well, I think am I correct in that I'll be on until a reappointment is put in place? So
Yes.
yeah, so maybe we can finish them up quick.
Glenn, I'm sorry
That'd
we've
be
run you
great.
off.
No, you haven't run me off. No, it's family matters that I have to attend to. So no, it's other things in my life.
I understand. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And Kendall, I'm so sorry about that, but hey, I
Well,
know.
the real
Yeah.
reason is that Gwen and I have always wanted to do brunch monthly on Tuesday mornings.
That's correct.
And this is really cutting into Gwen and I doing brunch.
In your style.
Well, I no Dr. Newman yet. Give him a few more minutes here. Jared, is Mr. Brown, are we expecting Mr. Brown today?
That's what I'm getting up to go check on right now. I just thought about
Thank
Mr.
you.
Brown. I'll be right back.
Okay, thanks. Well, you're missing a beautiful empty civil service office building right now. So my second time down here, it's been like old home week. I tell you, I tell Laura's in the room here with me that one of my clients passed away on Friday from COVID after unvaccinated, and whole family got it. 3 of them had minor cases. He had a very serious case and spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and I think about 4 weeks in ICU and about 16, 17 days on a ventilator, and just had his body unfortunately shut down. He was in his early 50s, and it's just,
Wow.
it's really tragic, and it's just, I don't know, we're not being recorded, are we yet, for our meeting? No. just frustrating because I just wanted him to get a shot, you know, just get a shot and refused to do it.
My
And
mother's
this-
my mother's husband, he won't get vaccinated and gave my mama COVID. So she has COVID right now. And you know, he's like, it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna give her some ivermectin. Like, you've got to be kidding me. You're not giving my mother sheep dewormer. Thank you. I'm gonna move her to civilization.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. Hard thing getting people to understand.
Mr. Chair,
You know, I had in one of my smaller cities, I had a public works director and his supervisor came in, was talking to him, and he had a fever. As it turned out, it was just allergies, but he had a fever, and he opened up the desk drawer, and he had a syringe, and he was doing ivermectin. And it's like, that's for animals. Why are you taking that? And she got on him and just said, you'll put that in your body, but you won't do a vaccine. I don't quite understand it, but and he turned out, again, it was just allergies, and so he's okay, but it's just shocking to me that someone would take, it was ivermectin for horses or sheep or something,
Yeah.
or
She
Animals, other than
animals.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give you a quick update. It seems that we have Mr. Brown here in the virtual room. Also, I just got a message from Dr. Newman. He sent me a picture of his screen, which says your meeting service has a problem processing your request. So he's having a bona fide technical issue that he's trying to get resolved. So I think we can get started. I
Okay.
sent him to that effect. So.
Well, yeah, oh, okay, and Laura's reminded me, everybody who's on the board has to be on camera. I think everybody is.
Kendall.
Okay. Let's see. Kendall, did we just lose you, bud?
I'm back on, sorry.
Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Dallas Civil Service Board, and today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. It is 9:37 a.m. and we're commencing. Since Dr. Newman is be joining us shortly, if it's okay with the board, I'd like to see if we could take out of order and go to number 2, the approval of the minutes first. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me go with public testimony first. Here are the public testimony and the following agenda items: approval of minutes, hearing items, and the action items. Is there anybody who would like to provide public testimony? Okay, hearing none, I'll move to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes. Approve the minutes from the August 3rd, 2021 Civil Service Regular Board Meeting. And have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes? Or you have any modifications, corrections, suggestions? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion then to approve the minutes from the August 3rd, 2021 Civil Service Board regular meeting.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Kendall. Second. Who, from Kyla for a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye. I mean, it's just have a show of hands. All in favor say aye. Okay, it passes 6-0. Our next item is to hear the rehire eligibility appeal of Mr. James Brown, a former employee in the Code Compliance Department. And if I could ask, Jared, any update on Glenn, Dr. Newman yet? Is this?
No, I will check on that momentarily. I haven't received any additional updates.
Okay.
He's been working on it since 9:20 this morning. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some difficulty. And Mr. Chair, just to clarify, were you saying that board members are required to maintain their cameras on, or all attendees?
Laura, all attendees are required, Heather?
All members for the whole meeting, but attendees, whenever they're speaking, they should put their camera on.
But board members should be on screen the whole time.
Anytime
Okay, anytime a board member isn't, Laura's telling me anytime a board member is not on screen, they're considered absent for that portion of the meeting. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I think we're all here and we'll just wait for Dr. Newman. Mr. Brown, and I want to
Yes,
make
sir.
sure are you here? You can hear us, good.
Yes, sir, I can.
We're going to hear your rehire eligibility appeal, and we know that you're a former employee in the Code Compliance Department. Let me give you just a brief
Yep.
overview of how these generally go, and I'll give you the floor in just a minute. But
Okay.
we'd like to ask General, we'd like to hear what where you worked for the city of Dallas and what were the conditions surrounding your separation from the city of Dallas,
Okay.
how long ago that was, and then tell us about what you've done since that time and why you believe that we should allow you to reapply, have the option to reapply with the city of Dallas. And
Yes, sir.
you speak as long as you wish, and after
Okay.
that, I will open it up to the board for them to ask questions of you. And after I'll ask questions, appropriate questions we think are necessary or relevant, then we will consider that item then as for board action. And so if do you have any questions at this point in time?
No, I don't. Not at this time. No.
Okay. Well, first off, Mr. Brown, thank you very much for being here this morning. I know we had some technical issues last month, so we appreciate you returning. And I would turn it over to you for you to address the board, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Salutations. I would like to reapply with. Hello. I'm sorry.
Mr. Brown, can I ask you if you could put your video on as well?
Yes, sir.
Can you do that?
Yes, sir. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see? Can you see me?
No,
Hello?
there we can. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm reapplying for the city of Dallas. One, the reason that I had quit the first time is that at the time I was going through some medical things. I needed surgery. I needed a double hernia surgery, and I was still in probation period. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get off of that probation period to get myself properly well. Since then, I've gone to school. I volunteer through the VA, through our VRC, Veterans Resource Center. Help the other vets there. I've got my welder's certification, and I've basically have been volunteering at churches and wherever else that I work at and help other people. I do electrical work. I have an electrical certification. And I've just been keeping myself busy, helping my fellow vets and myself. I'm a hard worker. Do what I'm supposed to do. No trouble. And at that time, I was working with the animal control division at that time as a intake officer. I believe that's what they considered it or call it. And that's it in a nutshell. I just feel I should get hired back. Like I say, I'm a hard worker and just want to get back to work.
Mr. Brown, if I could ask you quickly, before we go to board questions, could you give us some time frames for your employment from when you left the city and then when you started somewhere else? So just give us some sort of the number of years or whatever, so we understand that, please.
Yeah, the time frame was I don't have my notes in front of me right now, but it was about 2 or 3 years ago. So that would put that around 19 or 18 or so, 17 or 18. And that was pretty much during the I know it was during the summertime or springtime when I was working there.
Ms. Brown, so from the records we have from the city, The last date of employment that I see is November 23rd, 2016. That seems like there might be an error on that. Because it says you were appointed animal keeper 2 on November 23rd, 2016, but failed probation in 2014. So that doesn't make, I think my numbers might be wrong there.
Yes, sir.
The dates might be wrong, I'm sorry. But assuming if you were appointed animal keeper 2 in November of 2016, I would assume the failed probation would have been 2017, probably after you were appointed.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's
correct.
Yes, sir. That's about. Like I said, I'm not looking at my notes.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right now. So I'm not too sure on the dates and time right now.
Yeah, and we have the
But-
paperwork here. We can do a check. But let me just ask you this: from the
Yes, sir.
time you left work with the city, can you give me an idea of the time frame where you other places you were employed after you left the city?
After I left the city, I started doing volunteer work. Like I say, the Veterans Resource Center. Went to school there and got my certifications, my welder certification from those guys. And also I volunteered at my mother's church and helped some of the elderly, hand out meals to people, and also go and if they needed some electrical work on their houses or some things done at their houses, I've done that for the elderly at the church. And that's what I've been doing since, and helping my fellow veterans there at the Resource Center, at the Veteran Resource Center there, close to the VA.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and Ms. Brown, just for the purposes of the record, I'm looking at the documentation. If I read this correctly, the failure of probation was April 18th, 2017, which would be consistent with your recollection. Okay,
Yes, sir.
at this
That
point,
would be
is there anything
correct.
else further you'd like to say, Mr. Brown?
I think I would be a great hire for you guys. I bring more to the table than I take away. And I would just like to get back to work and work for the city of Dallas again, if all possible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ms. Brown, at this point in time, I want to turn it over to the board for any questions that they may have of you. And
Yes, sir.
I'd open it up for questions.
Hello, anyone?
Yeah, we're here. I'm just waiting to see.
Yeah. If I may, can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Brown, it looks like you failed probation twice with the city of Dallas. And since then, have you been employed by any organization or company from April 18th, 2017? Or is it just through your volunteer and with this Veterans Resource Center? You were a student in their program. When
Yes,
did that end?
That ended a little. It started during the pandemic. The rest of the guys in the class, we went ahead and we asked Ken, Mr. Waterson there that runs the center, could we stay on? He said that it would be okay, and we stayed there during the pandemic, and we got our certifications. And I've been doing that since I've basically got relieved from the city of Dallas. And I don't
Okay.
know. Can I just say something about the twice my probation period? All I remember is just one time. I don't know where the second time is coming from.
You were appointed a laborer with the Dallas Water Department in March 16th of 2016, and then you were terminated. You failed
Yep.
probation.
Okay,
So that's the first time. That's the
Okay,
first
yes.
time. I
Yes, ma'am.
understand.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I was just trying to understand. And so you haven't been able to get employment as a welder or anything for your certification?
At this time, if I can answer that, at this time, no, I have not. And since I have not, I just helped the instructor in the class since I was one of the guys that tested out fairly high. He hasn't invited me on to help him, and also it just keeps my it keeps my craft going, and I'm getting a lot better than what I was before.
And the only other question I have, Mr. Brown, is I guess since you failed probation twice with the city of Dallas, and you haven't had been under employment since that time, do you feel you're ready to go to a day-to-day job, show up on time, do the work, and be able to complete probation if you're given another chance to apply?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, being that the situation I come from, I mean, the second time, ma'am, I was in so much pain from a double hernia. I mean, I had to have surgery from a double hernia. I don't know if anybody up on the board has ever had a major surgery like that, but you cannot, the pain is so intense. And 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 I wasn't taking any drugs that they were giving me, but the pain was so intense, you can't concentrate. I mean, the pain is shooting through your body like nobody's business. And I had to have that surgery to basically save my life. When my doctor, he thought that I had been in an accident because he had to rearrange my intestines and everything inside my body.
Okay.
And that's the reason why I quit. Now,
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Can I just further dwell a little bit more? I have been on time for my VRC situation. I get up every morning before those guys get there, make sure their welding machines are on, and make sure that those guys are prepped. And I also do that prior to the day that the class is over. I would be there today, but I have a meeting with you guys. I'm reliable and I'm on time. But if I'm in pain, I had to do what I had to do. And I do apologize and thank you very much.
And thank you very much.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown,
Dr. Newman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Brown, I
Yes,
noticed
sir.
here that you were consistent with unexcused absences and or tardiness and or failure to give notice,
No.
when you were not going to be there. And I guess my question is, I heard you talk about pain and all of those medical related things, but I guess my biggest question is, why didn't you just call and let your supervisor know that you were not going to come to work that day or that week or whatever it may have been?
When I had talked to Otis at the time, I tried to make arrangement with Otis, and regardless of that situation, it just never happened. I guess I just wasn't a great fit, with Otis. I could call him 2 hours prior to let him know that I was not going to try. I was going to try to make it if all possible. His thing was, you signed, you want to work for us to be here.
So you're telling me you did call?
Yes, sir. I did call, but I had Otis. He's very particular about his time, as he likes to say.
I just asked for one of the board members. I'm looking at from the memorandum, page 14. Am I reading this correctly? Because the supervisor says that they're consistent failure to give notice and or call. Am I missing something?
Mr. Chair,
No,
if I
Dr.
may.
Newman, let me ask too that we're under the guidelines we follow here. We are to presume, we are to presume that all the facts are accepted as true and will not be revisited. So we go on that assumption that whatever's in the paperwork did in fact occur. We don't, in essence, relitigate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I have no other questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, I was about to illuminate that fact, but I also just wanted to confirm that the item in the board packet on page 14 that's compiled is in fact a letter of counseling issued to the former employee on the date that it's dated. I just wanted to clarify what you were looking at, Dr. Newman, is a letter of counseling that would have been issued to the employee on that date, and that's why it's a part of the record and included here this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
May I ask a clarifying question about that document?
So, certainly.
I don't see there that it states that Mr. Brown didn't give notice. I see at the bottom there, it looks like it's a citation that gives an example of what falls under that 3436B, but I don't believe it. I don't see that this document states that he failed to give notice, only that he had unexcused absence. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding the document?
So, Ms. Cotter, it appears to me, to your point, that this employee received this letter of counseling, and 34-36 is a reference back to the personnel rules. I don't have them at my fingertip, but I would assume that number one, A and B, there are probably some other lettered items under unsatisfactory attendance as by way of example, but I don't have it in front of me and don't want to commit to that. But it appears to me that the supervisor issued the letter of counseling on this date, counseling the employee that their absences were considered violative of this policy portion, not, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Shana, when I read that, I looked at the first 3 dates as being 8 hours absence, just not being there those days. And then I assumed the 2 hours was the tardiness, but I don't know that for certain. But I assume just looking at the hours, that is how I interpreted that.
But does that mean too that he
Board
didn't call in? I mean, it may be neither, maybe we don't need to dwell on this point. It just isn't clear to me that that means that he did not notify his supervisor, only that they were not excused.
Well, see, that's what I was trying to get to through my question. Same thing. So, but I'm fine.
Okay. Board members, any other questions for Mr. Brown?
I do. This is Kyla.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
if you were allowed to
Yours-
reapply for
okay.
the city, what, what,
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
it's Kyla, can you hear me? Yeah. If you were allowed to reapply to the city, what department or area do you want to work in?
I believe the applications that I applied, the positions that I applied for were with the code enforcement and the water position. I believe that was the 2 positions that I had put in for.
Would either of these positions utilize your electrical or other certifications?
Yes, ma'am. Both of them would fit in great. The code enforcement, especially being that I have my electrical and my welding, and also I've worked in the street departments, so I do have some a strong background in that also. So that wouldn't be a problem, none whatsoever. And it would definitely be utilizing all my skill sets that I have.
Prior to working at the city, what is the longest job you've held?
When I was in the military and working for our family business back home.
How long were you in the military, sir?
I was in there 5 years, 11 months.
What
I was in-
branch?
I was in the Air Force.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
What kind of business did your family run?
Well, my grandmother, she had apartments, and I did the make ready and some plumbing and a lot of plumbing with my with my two uncles. So I was basically their meal.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Yes, if I may, this is Shayna.
Sure.
Mr. Brown, when you've, in your volunteer work
Mhm.
with the Veterans Resource Center, what has your schedule been? How many hours a week have you volunteered?
Easily a 40-hour week. That's not a problem at all. I mean, the job is fun because I'm around fellow veterans, and it's a lot of yucking, but we have to be serious about this because at this time, none of us have been able to find any jobs in the welding industry. We've had guys go off to take the welding test for the pipeline, but the welds are not strong. It's not that we can't do the job. It's that we just have not enough experience. Is the main thing that we always come around. You don't have enough experience. We just have the schooling, but we don't have the working experience that we need. Now, everybody's welds are great. Some guys are passing them, and that they might have to take the test again for the second time, but they're usually passing them. But the excuse that we get is that you guys don't have enough experience. And that's what we all need. So a lot of us just come back to the school, and this is what we're doing. We're getting that experience. And it has helped me out quite a bit. I've had a couple tests that I've been back to and done, but still it's the experience part that I need.
And for about how long have you been spending about 40 hours a week in this volunteer role?
Since the pandemic, I've been doing this since all this has been going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, I have one quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, going about 18 months. Prior to that, I want to make sure I understand, where were you working or volunteering prior to your work with the Veterans Group?
I was doing volunteer work for my mother's church.
Oh, okay. And about when did that start?
I can't tell you right offhand, like I'm not looking at my notes right now.
Sure.
Right now, if I could get back with you guys on that, I can, but I'm not too sure on that. But I know it's been a while.
When you did volunteer work for your mother's church, about how many hours a week did you volunteer?
Probably no more than
On
30.
average?
It's probably no more than 30 because I mean, some people might need some things done, and some may not. So it just a lot of times it would depend. It go up there and clean up and those things. Just keeping myself busy, and the church afforded me that opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Board members, any additional questions? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Brown, this is the time now when the board deliberates about this. So before we go into that, is there anything further you'd like to say, or does that conclude everything you wish to tell the board?
No, sir. I would like to say one thing, to clear up one thing about working for Otis. With the animal control people, I was never late, even though I did have to have the surgery. That is one of the most unusual things for me to be late, and the tardiness, because that's one thing I do not do. If you need extra letters, recommendations, or the whatnots, everybody would let you know. If something like that is happening, it's because something is wrong with me physically. And that was a lot of pain that I was going through at the time. And I would just like to get the opportunity to again show people what I know what to do and what I can do. To be given that opportunity again. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Okay, board, I'm going to open this up for deliberation by the board. Comments, who'd like to start? I'll be willing to go first unless I don't want to take anybody else wants to go first.
I'll start. I guess my concern is,
Okay,
my concern is that I just, aside from this Veterans Resource Center, I have a little concern about whether or not Mr. Brown is going to be able to perform effectively and successfully. He hasn't shown that he has a work history in a stable workplace environment since he's been since he left the city, except for the Veterans Resource Center. And I'm a little concerned about his commitment to going back to the city again, because we've had 2 chances. And so I understand the medical history, and I'm going to, the one question I should have asked was, has the medical problem been resolved? I was assuming it had been resolved.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And so I'm just a little bit concerned about, aside from the Veterans Resource Center involvement, there is no evidence of a stable employment at any time since he left the city the second time. But that's why I asked my questions of him earlier.
thank you, Gwen. Kendall?
Yeah, just kind of, this may be a point of clarification. So the vote that we're taking on is whether or not to allow Mr. Brown to reapply.
Yes.
Decisions on the basis of, qualifications, or whether or not to rehire, or whether they feel he'll perform, in that capacity, that's to be made by a separate body, correct?
Yes, yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can respond.
No, sure.
So the decision that, so this process and the decision before you is to make a determination whether or not the appellant should be allowed the opportunity to reapply for open positions at the city. To your question, Mr. Scudder, the actual hiring decision as to fit and suitability for the position will be made by the hiring manager. This would be to allow the application to be properly filed for any open and vacant position so advertised here at the City of Dallas.
Thank you. So my opinion on this is that, while I don't disagree with some of the concerns that board member, my colleague expressed, I don't know that is my particular job in this decision. My decision is whether or not to allow reapplication. It seems as if the probationary period in the last cycle was something that was, outside of Mr. Brown's control. And as a result, it would be my opinion that reapplication would be something that I would think is acceptable in this situation. So at this point, I intend to vote in favor of Mr. Brown having the opportunity to reapply.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you.
If I could jump in here, the one concern, Ms. Brown, I have is and maybe this might be a compromise. I would like to see something from your veterans group, or just have some documentation about what you did and your attendance. And I would like to see something. In the past, we've had applicants who come before us, and they've shown us, they provide letters from their previous employers or whatever, and usually they're kind of almost recommendation letters often. And I just don't see any documentation. I would like to maybe see something, because you told us that you are working pretty much 40 hours a week with the veterans group. I would like to see something about verifying that, maybe from a supervisor or something that talks about your attendance, and that briefly addresses that issue.
If I'm not,
I toss out excuse
I'm-
me, sorry, Mr. Brown,
okay.
but I toss that out as a possibility to maybe postpone this and get that information, but I certainly want to listen to everybody and whatever comments anybody else.
if I can, I do believe Miko and Manny have given recommendations to you guys. I don't know if you guys have access to that or anything like that, but I do have 2 letters from Miko and Manny, and Manny's the instructor of the class.
Mr. Chair, if I may direct a question to Mr. Brown, just so I can get some clarity from my perspective. Mr. Brown, do I understand you to say that the individuals in connection with your community service organizations submitted letters to the Civil Service Department on your behalf in connection with your appeal?
Yes, sir. Yes, they have.
Okay, Ms. Monzon, are we in receipt of any additional documentation in support of Mr. Brown's rehire eligibility appeal that's not in the?
I
in the-
think
in the-
that somebody sent something and I forwarded the morning of the meeting, the day of the meeting last month. I submitted something, but I need to find it. But yes, I did receive some documents. But it
Okay.
was last minute. That's why I didn't include it in the packet last month. And this month, yes, I didn't include it in the book packet again.
Okay. So from what I gather, Mr. Chair, last month, we received some correspondence that may be in line with your question. Ms. Monzon is looking for that. It was not included in this morning's board packet, but apparently we received something kind of at the last minute, and the whole situation we had last month. So let me see if we can't.
We received it via email on September 3rd.
Okay. So it would have been the morning of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I've just been able to
Jared, can
locate
I
that
ask
email.
that?
Oh, sorry.
If someone has that, I don't have access to my email since I'm in City Hall. Could
May I
we
just
get a
read
copy
it?
of that and
Or-
throw that on the screen?
Or I can,
Was-
let me see it. I can read it, or I can see if I can screen share. Let's see.
If you
It's
can
all-
screen share,
in a
great. If
second.
you could-
I'll give you access to the screen, just a second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Anna.
I'll give you access to the screen, just give me a second.
Okay.
Was looking forward to the story time.
It's short.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you can share your document.
Are you able to, are
Oh,
folks able to read this?
okay.
Shayna, will help if you go scroll up so we can see that it's from
Yes.
Miko at Veterans Resource Center. Who
Great,
it's
yes.
from, yeah. Yeah, Miko at Veterans Resource Center, and it's copying this
Veterans Resource Center.
Manheim
Manheim. Yes.
Manheim Rebel at gmail.com. And that's your supervisor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
And
mine
the,
is, so can I ask you
and the
just to read
instructor
it?
would be Manny.
Okay, so, and Manny is the instructor, you said, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Manny is the instructor, and he
And-
also sent. And Miko, she runs the resource center. Her and Mr. Well, actually, it's Ken Waters. He's the top man, but Miko runs the. She runs that thing. She's the mother hen of it. Just put it that way.
Got it. Did you ask me to read it, Mr. Chair? Or can folks?
Yeah,
read?
it's kind of going in and out on my screen a little bit. So if you could just read it, I know it's short.
Sure. It says, to Ana Monzon, my name is Shamiko Ragsdale, and proud to offer my recommendation of Mr. James Brown, to whom I have known and for 2 years, as he was a welding student in our welding program at the Veterans Resource Center. During this time, I have experienced an individual who goes above and beyond what is expected. Mr. Brown is dependable and responsible. During the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown, he remained committed to completing the welding course and graduated with his welding, OSHA, and forklift certifications. While attending classes, he also did volunteer work for the Homeless Veterans Services of Dallas's Day Center, located in the Veterans Resource Center. Mr. Brown is a hard worker, a team player, and has a willingness to learn. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you should require any further information. Respectfully submitted, Shamiko Ragsdale, HVSD VRC, with the telephone number.
Okay, thank you very much, Shannon. Appreciate that. And if there's a second letter, we made it. If Shannon, if you have that, or
I saw that. We didn't get a second.
I'm looking. That's the one I located. I don't see another.
oh, okay.
No,
Okay,
I think
okay.
we only received one letter from him.
If I can, I
Okay.
know Manny. He sent it. He told me to Miss Manzone, and because he sent his letter 2 days prior to Miko sending hers. So
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. We will continue to look for a second letter. But I think what was forwarded is what we have. Unfortunately, we didn't include it physically in the packet today, but that's what we had on record in terms of letters of support. But we'll continue to look to confirm whether or not we have another letter on Mr. Brown's behalf.
Okay, Jared, thank you very much. I admit that answered my question, though I do appreciate that being read. And Shannon, thank you for doing so. Okay, board, we're continuing our deliberation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak.
Anyone else have anything further to say?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to, after having heard the letter being read, thank you for reading the letter. It has now allowed me to allow Mr. Brown to reapply with the city of Dallas. I had some concerns about attendance, but listening to the letter, it speaks somewhat to attendance, his ability to, as a hard worker. It says that he is committed, and so that has somewhat changed my mind to allow him to reapply.
Okay. Any other discussion by the board?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the rehire eligibility of Mr. James Brown.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion to approve the rehire eligibility. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Shana and Glenn. So Shana, I'm gonna go with you, okay? So there's been any discussion on the motion? And I would ask that in voting, everybody raise their hand. All in favor, raise your hand. I don't see, I'm just on my screen, I don't have Kyla on. Laura,
I'm
do you
in
have
favor.
Kyla
Hands up.
over there? In favor? I think if I can tell, that's 6 in favor.
6.
Yes, sir. I can confirm you have six voting members in favor of the motion.
Any opposed? Is there anyone opposed?
No.
I don't see anyone opposed.
Oh.
Or do we have 7 members in favor?
Mr. Chair, we only have 6 members of the board in attendance today, and fortunately,
Oh.
my screen shows.
I'm sorry, Chandra's gone. Thank
My
you.
screen shows a couple
6 in
more
favor, I'm
Hollywood
sorry, Chandra's
square
gone.
boxes. So I see 6 voting in favor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, if someone's not on screen, we can't, they're not here, but we don't have everybody on the screen anyway, even with this technology, so, okay. So the vote is 6 in favor and none opposed. And Mr. Brown, congratulations, and please, someone from the Civil Service Department will contact you about next steps.
Yes, sir.
Jared, is there anything further we need to add there?
No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown. You're free to go. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning.
All right. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. You have a good day. Thank you.
Hey, you do say, I'm trying to have a great day now. Thank you.
Good. Glad we give you part of that. Okay. Our next item on our agenda are briefing and discussion items. The first is a DPD 911 telecommunicator hiring update. Jared, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, board members. I wanted to provide you with an update as you requested to our 911 telecommunicator and hiring support for DPD. We have really been working with them on a number of positions. And so I just wanted to provide you with an update and answer any questions you have. Some of your questions I may not be able to answer because as we are just beginning our new fiscal year, we'll have to pull down some data and take a look at data and also work with our client, the police department, to figure out where do we go from here from our staffing plan for the upcoming year. But I know that we had started the conversation, I want to say in August, about our police hiring, particularly around telecommunicators. I wanted to provide you with an update by way of that. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So as you will recall, in July, we had hiring events where we saw 266 potential 911 call taker training candidates. And in Q4, we were able to hire 33 into that position. So we're tracking and continuing to meet the staffing need in partnership with the police department. We have seen some success in our on-site hiring events that we've been doing in collaboration with DPD. And so if you've noticed in the box below, in August and September, we were able to expand the positions that we're hiring for to support the police department. So expanding those positions into crime technician, fleet coordinator, office assistant, dispatcher, and some of the other reports positions and some of the other communicator positions that we've even talked about in other instances as a board. And so during August and September, we added 7 additional positions and saw 206 potential candidates attended the hiring event for those events. And so hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have some updated hiring statistics around those positions to give you a better line of sight into how successful those events have been. And also that data tells us what we can perhaps partner together and do differently or the same, in fact. Next slide. Yeah. So the combined 911 call taker training hiring event applicant data, as you see, we saw 1,834 candidates from July through September applied for our 911 call taker positions. 980 of them met minimum qualifications. 513 of that group completed the exam successfully, and 197 were subsequently referred to the department for further consideration. So I wanted to show you again, as we've been talking, we have individuals who apply for the positions, then meet many qualifications, and then participate in the completed exam. As a parenthetical note, I've shared with you that, we heard the feedback and the concerns about the 911 call taker civil service exam and trying to make doubly sure that the test components and the assessment components within that assessment are accurate and valid and related to the job. And so the test and validation team here within the department has been working with Dallas Police Department subject matter experts. So in other words, supervisors and individuals who perform that job to be doubly sure that the test dimensions reflect the needed skills, and making sure that from a subject matter expert that we're asking the questions that are indicative or predictive of how a person will perform in the job. And so we're still going through that process. And we're still working through that process, and hopefully we will have some better information updates to guide how we may or may not alter the assessment tool in the future.
Jared, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
If I understand the data correctly, in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, we made referrals to the department of 197 individuals. And from a few slides back, there were 33 hires. Is this all
Correct.
the same data? Okay.
Correct.
So if we had, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If we made 33 hires, what is the number of positions that are still open for 911 call taker trainee?
That I think was aligned with my comment that now that we're into a new fiscal year, I think we're going to have to do a fiscal year to fiscal year comparison of the number of 911 call takers. To see, which, as you know, there were some were approved in this current budget cycle that the city just adopted that budget. And so some of that analysis work still needs to be done. I'm not prepared to present on that piece this morning. I wanted to close the loop with you about how many people we had actually saw and hired kind of going from July through the end of the fiscal year or September.
But I would think it's positive. I'm glad to see 33 hires being made.
No, I think that what we have seen in all honesty is that with the hiring events, we're able to streamline the process and get offers on the spot. And I think that yields higher numbers as we move forward. But we also know that even with 33 hires, there's still some positions that we got to hire for into the next fiscal year. But I'm encouraged because I think what we've learned from July through September is focused hiring events where we equip applicants with the information they need before they arrive really helps the hiring manager be able to get right to the talent and be able to issue an on-the-spot offer. And I think that we've learned that time and time again. And I think that's why you see we added the additional 7 positions even as we got towards the end of the fiscal year, realizing that we were really able to get some traction there. And I think you're going to see this approach repeated even when I get to the code compliance kind of hiring update where we're really trying to focus in on the hiring events to get candidates through the door, in the door, and through the door in terms of the processing and the interviewing pieces. So.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
Of the 33 hires in the fourth quarter, so you hired 33 people in the fourth quarter alone?
Yes, between July and September.
So did you have any idea, when we started this conversation, what was your target goal? I mean, because you started off here with 1,834 candidates that applied overall, but what was the number that would have met satisfaction, at least for the city of Dallas? I mean, did 33 get us to where we need to be? Or do we need 33 more? I'm just trying to get a feel for, because this has been a big conversation that, we've had on another board that I'm serving on, that a lot of the citizens have been very concerned about this number. So I want to know, we currently have 33 in the fourth quarter. Going forward, how many do you think you're going to have, say, by the second quarter of the new fiscal year?
So, couple things I'd like to respond to. The first is I encourage you to go back and look at our last two annual reports. When we look annualized data, I think at one point we hired 4 call takers in a fiscal year. So I think when I look at 33 versus 4, understanding that there's still a staffing challenge and a need to challenge. So I would say it this way: we need 33 more. But I think we're figuring out how to move faster and smarter in terms of getting people processed in. But to your point, I think at the initial number that I recall when we first started out was we were looking at roughly 50. And so 33 puts us closer to the number 50. However, recognizing that we still have 33, I think, more to go. And also recognizing, Dr. Newman, that even as we try to staff, there's also attrition occurring contemporaneously. So you get 33 and you lose 3 in the process. And so I'm sorry that I'm not. 50 was the number, the target number for me that I understood kind of going in. And so 33 got us closer to that number. And so I think we'll take a new look in the new fiscal year and plan our work from there. But I would not like to leave the question without underscoring, when we look at previous goals at this, I think we've grown, I think because we understand how to do this a little bit better, but also some of the scrutiny around, how many people are we actually interviewing and making on the spots hires for. So I'm encouraged by the 33 when I look back at 4 in previous years.
Thank you for that, Jared. And 50, having hired 33, I feel real good about that.
So can I add a little bit to that?
Yeah, Chief Shedd, I'm sorry.
I do think maybe our number was around 50 when we started. I can just say, since I've gotten to the administrative bureau here on the police department, that the number was around 50. But what has to be understood with the 911 call taker is that this is an ongoing process of hiring. We hired 33 and probably likely need double that, just to maintain the service level that we should be maintaining for our citizens. You're probably likely going to need to double that number. But with that being said, the success of what we call an on-site hiring events have been highly successful, having had, I believe, 3 of those thus far. So with that success, and we've hired 33, needing to double that, with the understanding that attrition is very high in the 911 call taker position, this is actually going to be an ongoing process for us to just maintain the service level that we need to maintain for our citizens. So
Thank you for that, Chief Shedd, and I apologize I didn't invite you into the discussion again, because again they've been a key partner with us, understanding, and as Chief Shedd has put it, it will be an ongoing process, and not just for 911 call takers. I think if you look at the universe of and that's why I've even titled it, in moving towards that telecommunicator space, even dispatchers. And I think we look at the first of the year at some of that data. So it's a hard position to recruit for. It's a hard position to keep staffed, but at the same time, we're steadily running towards that in order to maintain those acceptable service levels, as the Chief just explained.
Chief and Jared, I want to thank you both. I mean, I know we're not where we want to be exactly, but again, that is, I think, remarkable progress, considering we had a year where we hired 4. We had a quarter where we've hired 33. So I know there's high turnover, and we're still working, but I think you all have done a great job, and I mean, that's just encouraging to see 33 hires in a quarter. That's great. So Chief, please, thanks to you and all your folks over at the PD.
I will definitely pass that along. They are doing a great job over there. And,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next slide. So again, I always like to show you our candidate sources. You know, I think sometimes we think that, you know, advertising in one space or another may generate more interest in a position, but I want to share with you still the bulk of our candidates indicate to us that they find out about us on our careers page. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because I think a lot of times when we have talent acquisition conversations around where should we be advertising, should it be a banner, you know, behind a plane, a small aircraft? I think what we still see is that people know how to find out about us on the careers page. And so I wanted to share that with you.
Jared, are those statistics just or for which positions is that? Or is that overall?
This is for the 911 call taker telecommunicator position.
Great, thank you.
It's not the universe of the other 7 that I shared. This is just for August and September, because we had to kind of track it on the basis of when the requisition was open. But
great, thank you.
Yes, 911. All right. And again, I don't want to leave without saying thank you to our partners, of course, our Human Resources Group, of course, Dallas Police Department, the Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas, as well as the Communications Outreach and Marketing team. So we had a host of people, and we continue to have a working group of individuals to help us with marketing communications, with getting the word out. Of course, the PD in terms of their hiring expertise and facilitation, Workforce Solutions, and helping us work with the public and interview candidates and prepare them and get them ready. So again, we're thankful for the Workforce Solutions, and of course, Human Resources was helping us facilitate those on the spot offers, and the Civil Service team, both validation as well as our recruitment team, who's there on those long Saturdays as well, working to see if we can't do everything we can to get our 911 operations fully staffed. So thank you to everyone and to our partners, particularly. Okay. Any other questions?
Board, are there any other further questions? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Let's say the same thing before we go to code of compliance. Okay.
When's the next event?
We'll be back in touch with you, Board Member Cotter.
All right.
I don't think that was scheduled yet, but it'll be soon.
It'll be soon. I think, again, I think that what we like the ability to do is to regroup when you start in a new fiscal year to see, okay, where are we? The dust is settled. What's our approach? And there's some natural rhythm that I've tried to incorporate, but I think that the department is open to figure out where do we need to go as we look forward. And so I just got an email related to entry-level fire hiring and EMT as we move forward. And so we'll go look at that. And so I'm sure more information will be coming back to you on that. Okay, let's now turn to, if we can, I'll wait on that. Sorry, I think he was asking about code. When we think about public safety and the challenges that we have as a city, we have known for some time that there is a need to hire more code compliance officers. It's a difficult job. It's a difficult job to staff for, much like 911. Because they are interfacing with the public and typically not telling citizens or residents very good news in the code compliance world. And so that continues to be a challenge, but we do know that if our codes aren't managed as they're intended, then we have a public safety issue here within the city. And so I'm sensitive to it, the department, the staff is sensitive to it, And so I wanted to share with you because we've been really, and I think this is the beginning of some creative partnership, and that's why I really wanted to share this with you, to figure out what is it that we can do again to increase our activity in code compliance. Not to mention the testing that has to occur at the state level for you to be a licensed code inspector as well. So I want to just run through a couple hiring event numbers for you. Next slide. So we partnered with the public library and turned the central library downtown into an on-site hiring event location for code compliance. And so that took place in July. I was going to share this with you all in September, but I know you say, well, it's kind of old now, news, but it's still news nonetheless that I wanted to share with you. We had 147 attendees for code compliant officers. We had 83 interviews and made 44 on-the-spot offers for that position. And so I really wanted to share, you'll see in the picture, those are real life code compliance officers. I think in one picture, 2 team members from civil service checking people in and working the event in order to screen applicants and help support individuals who desire to be code compliance officers. Next slide. So just give you a little idea of the kind of combined data, but also looking at the referral rates, how many we referred over. So we had a combined total of 1,266. Of that, we referred 575 with 33 offers of hire. And looking at the referral rates for so we were looking for equipment operators, inspector 1, or just a code inspector, which is the entry level, and then inspector 2, which is the more graduated code inspector. And also they're not hired in any one sequence. So I just wanted to go back and say, I said inspector 1, and some would maybe think that we hire inspector 1 and then promote it. But those are 2 different classifications that are hired for. So I wanted to share that with you. We don't have another hiring event on the books, but we are in conversation with code compliance to strategize how can we replicate this event again, and create a little bit more strategy and be able to track with a little bit more certainty the data around what we're looking for, what's our target number as we move forward. But we're encouraged because anytime a department reaches out to civil service to say, can you help us with an event or anything of that nature in terms of hiring, we encourage it, because if we can put a hiring manager in the room with an applicant, I think you start seeing offers of 33 and other numbers come to bear, because you actually, sometimes interviewing is hard to do when you don't do it all the time, number one, from a hiring manager's perspective. But also number 2, just scheduling and getting it all done and getting around to it. I think sometimes we find greater success when we have individuals at an event. I think this deals with the next slide deals with the sources. So again, 86% came from our careers page. And it was some advertisement run on Fox 4, KDFI, KDFW, as well as Facebook. And so that's where our candidate sources are. And we get this information based on what the candidates tell us. I'll stand for any questions. I know the code piece is a little bit more underdeveloped than our police, but I did want to share the information with you and share with you that we're continuing those discussions and strategy as we move forward.
So Jared, is it safe to say that every time we have a hiring event or a job fair, we get 33 people we actually hire? We did have 33 for code enforcement, 33 for police. So must be something magic about that number.
Yes, we just divide 66 in half. But no, that is, yeah, that's oddly enough.
Well, those numbers are encouraging. These are areas where we have real needs. The city has real needs, and so I'm glad to see those numbers, and I think it shows that you and the departments, civil service and the departments, are making progress in some areas that have been problematic for a long time. So, thank you all very much. I think that's great news, and keep it up.
Thank you for that feedback, and and I'll just share. Because I think it goes right here is if we look here, Mr. Chair, historically, what we want to do is partner with departments to help them find talent, assess talent, and refer talent so these critical positions can be staffed. I think the team recognizes that, in our public safety, in all of our positions, but some of those have a higher degree of criticality than others. And so what we want to do is partner and not be perceived as a barrier to the department getting the people that they need. And I know that's been a stigma that we've worked very hard to overcome. And so your feedback is well taken in that regard, and that's something that we continue to do and to take feedback. For example, when we hear that the police department has concerns about certain elements of our tests, we'll take a look at that in earnest to see if any of that does need updating, because again, we want to be able to assess talent and put people in jobs that with some degree of them being successful. So I just wanted to share that because that's a different, I think, tone than we've had in some previous instances as it relates to some of these critical and hard to fill positions.
I had a question
Thank you, Jared.
about the numbers, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't understand, there was the data about how many folks had attended the hiring event, and then the next slide was a much bigger number, and I just was wondering what was the difference in the data on those two?
Sure, let's back up. Let's back up to the chart.
Yes, this
Okay.
slide, the difference between the data on this slide and the slide before it.
Okay, go back one more. Okay. So this event, so my understanding is that this event is one that took place on the 28th, the actual isolated event, which was 147 attendees with 83 and 44 offers. That was made on July 28th. Am I correct, Ms. Rucker, in this data? If you're on mute. And my understanding is quite often bad, so I just want to make sure before I speak out of turn. Ashley, I can't hear you if you are. Okay. I'm unable to hear you. So while we work to confirm that, board member comments, my understanding that the data from the 28th, that the data on the screen is from the 28th. If you go to the next slide, while the title says code hiring event application data, it's my understanding that this data, she just sent me a note that says, yes, that is correct. And so then this data takes into account all of the positions that are listed below. Is that correct, Ms. Rucker? So your question may be, why is offers to hire number different in the combined from the event.
Yeah, and in fact, it's lower, so it didn't seem to
Right.
be aggregated either, so.
Right. So allow me an opportunity to take a deeper look at this particular number and follow up with you all.
I would appreciate that. And I do want to say, I've been so encouraged to see the successes of these hiring events, bringing the folks together on Room seems like a great approach. It seems like it's had positive yields, meeting important needs for city residents. So that's wonderful. I do just want to be sure that we're looking at the right numbers.
I do too. So let me double check the number and I appreciate that and follow back up with you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that? That was, I think, the conclusion of what I had prepared, Mr. Chair, on code.
Okay, we'll go next to the DPD promotional plan, promotional schedule.
So before we bring up the screen, what I want to share and disclaim is I wanted to share with you all one of the things that we have tried to get into the habit of doing over the last couple years is creating a planned promotional schedule. And what that means and what that helps us do is plan out on the backside of assessment centers, resources needed, and all the planning and organization it takes to create a written exam and an assessment center for our sworn service. And so what I'm going to get ready to share with you, and it's no big secret, but I'm sensitive to it because I want to make sure that I disclaim that this is not a set in stone schedule, number one. So it does not commit us and the department or anybody in decision makers to a day for day. This is our planned schedule that we're working towards, understanding that realities speed us up and slow us down. And so I just wanted to share with you, but this is the framework from which we're working. Now, we know some want us to go faster, some want us to go slower, but this is our plan as it stands right now. And I wanted to share that with the board, in particular, you, Ms. Cotter, because I'm glad that we're able to get to this point to where we can show what's our plan to bring our promotional ranks up to date in terms of eligibility lists and moving that forward. So without further ado, I'll share with you, here's our plan and this is what we're working towards. So I don't want anybody in TV land to come back and say that, you know, this is exactly what we will be doing. And so we have already announced on September 15th, our lieutenant's written exam, and we hope to announce sergeant on November 2nd, lieutenant on December 14th, and announce senior corporal on December 22nd. As you can see, those are very kind of right after another announcements, which would then get us into working with the police department subject matter experts and the whole promotional process that I think the board has been briefed now a couple times on would ensue between announcement and actual assessment center dates or written exam dates. But this is our plan, and so we hope to be fully complete within the first quarter of 2022, calendar year 2022, with all our promotional activities, understanding that we're going to go as fast as we can in all of these areas. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that I'm clear that this is just our plan at this time. But I did want to share that with you because we've shared it with you for fire prevention. I committed to sharing it with you for police. And I will be back in touch with you at some point to share with you fire operations because they're coming right behind police. We just finished with them. We're finishing fire prevention. And so our teams have been busy preparing and or executing our exams. And so I wanted to share our DPD plan with you and stand for any questions or complaints.
Jared, are you able to fill us in a little bit on what are some of the factors that have gone into establishing this schedule? And what factors might affect our ability to stick with the proposal?
So what we look at is the amount of time it takes to create an exam and or an assessment center, the amount of time it takes to identify, secure, and schedule assessors who would participate in an assessment center. Of course, you know, the whole test development process takes that intervening time between announcement and other factors. So that takes into account for that. After living through 2022, after living through 2020, I dare not say what all can change a plan, because I don't know if you recall, we had to postpone and suspend our promotional activity because we just couldn't even secure assessors. And so I just always, to the best of our ability, this will be our plan. But we think that this is reflective of all of those factors that I just shared with you about how long it takes to do different things, and also the coordination it takes internally to have, you know, members from DPD to come in and do the subject matter expert weighing in and the validation of those test items. And so it does take a little time to do that. And so we think that this plan and this timeline reflects our most aggressive pursuit. But we're all open to, if we see where we can move faster in a certain area, I'm definitely open to that. And because we know the department has interest in doing that, but at the same time, I don't want to say for sure that we will announce the written exam for sergeant on November 2nd, because I just hadn't gotten to November 2nd yet.
But did we announce the lieutenant written exam on September 15th?
We have already announced lieutenant, and so we're off and running.
Okay. This question may be, maybe for you, Jared, it may be for Chief Shedd. I believe it was board member Satterthwaite who had raised a question of who is providing goals to Morris McDaniel and guidance in terms of what the department, the police department, is looking for in the written exams and the assessment centers. Has there already been kind of that higher level conversation to dictate how the exams are written and designed? Is that in the works? I'd love to hear somebody speak to that.
Well, I'd like to respond from my point of view, and Chief Shedd, if her point of view differs in your question. But from our point of view, a couple things is that I have been intentionally making sure that Chief Shedd and other leaders within Dallas Police Department are working closely with Morris McDaniel to make sure that the instrument reflects the department goals and needs. And so I think those conversations are occurring. Those conversations are ongoing, and I think I know that we are also exploring the entire universe of what does Morris McDaniel offer by way of assessment and examination, and what can we use here in Dallas as appropriate. And so Chief Shedd and I are to observe some other things that the department, that Morris McDaniel is doing for other departments as well. The team most recently, DPD as well as Civil Service, traveled to Fort Worth to see their process through the vendor, to see what's applicable and what can we bring back. But I just wanted to share that with you from a collaboration and a listening and a response, but also making sure that that's done in a way that maintains the objectivity and the separateness between what we're expected to do in the department.
And mine went off.
And
It just.
So from a departmental leadership perspective, we have had the opportunity to have multiple conversations with Dr. Morris about kind of what we envision for more specifically our sergeant and lieutenant rank. You know, as you promote up to more of a higher leadership role, it becomes more important that we focus on different different aspects of what we expect of the individuals who are actually applicants. And so we can do a better vetting job of those applicants. So we've had a number of meetings with Dr. Morris, a number of phone calls and other conversations, not to mention, as Jared said, had an opportunity to look at some of the setup of in Fort Worth, right there, assessment centers. In addition to that, I'll actually be flying out early part of next week to actually review the assessment of two separate agencies next week. So there's a couple of things that I really need to know a little bit more about it, more specifically the performance parameters that are used. Some of them are things that we would more heavily focus on. So let's just for an example, the ability to be flexible with us. So a police commander, which a lot of these folks are moving into that realm, has the responsibility of being flexible. There is not a 9 to 5 here. There is not a such thing as a weekend here. And as you move higher into the ranks, you have to have a clear understanding of that and be flexible and available, and be attentive at all times and understand that you might be called upon. And so if we tend to find those individuals that on a day by day, week by week basis who has had the wrong outlook, what it takes to be a police sergeant, lieutenant, or commander, we want to be able to vet those people out and to let them know this is what it requires to be at this level. You probably need to go back and work on that a little bit before we would want you to be a part of this team. And so just having a clear understanding of the rank that you are going to be attempting to promote in, being able to vet through those folks is important for us from the leadership perspective. And so we will have ample opportunity to do that prior to the actual assessment and interview process that will be conducted internally here at DPD.
Thank you for that. That's very encouraging. I have just one more question, if folks don't mind. Chief Shedd, when we met in May, you had made some comments about the larger departmental priorities regarding procedural justice, use of force, those sort of more kind of both value and practice-oriented departmental priorities. And I'm wondering whether you believe the department has had ample opportunity to visit with Morris McDaniel about those types of objectives and whether Morris McDaniel has been receptive.
I'll be honest with you, not as much as we would like to. I think that some of his performance parameters that he'll be utilizing touch on some aspects of procedural justice, but I do know that most of those things you cannot actually test for those in a promotional process. You may be able to interview for those and see how a person responds to different scenarios that's presented to them, but you may not be able to test like in a written test aspect, and you may be able to provide that in a scenario portion of an assessment center. But most of the assessment centers provide you with one, maybe two scenarios, and then there's other things that you provide, like what's your personal history and things like that, right? And so there's small opportunity to do that. As a police department, we focus on procedural justice, in the history of policing and things of that nature internally during our training and day by day. So procedural justice does not just come through training. We provide you the training, but there's a lot of procedural justice you can train on just in the field while you're working, or as you're supervising people, or as you're completing an investigation as a detective, or as a sergeant, as you're running a crime scene. There's a lot of procedural justice that happens for us on a day-by-day basis. We'll provide you the training. We'll provide you with everything that you need to know as it relates to how to be a real police officer and how to serve your community, but you actually show that you can do that on a day-by-day basis. So sometimes during a promotional process, you can kind of intertwine that in there in a little bit. But what happens is that has to become something that's appropriate and important for us on every day, not just the training day, not just during the promotional process. So that's still part of the conversation that we have had a little bit with Dr. Morris, but we will continue to have with him so that he understands where, how we feel and where we stand in the police world as it relates to the effectiveness of this police department.
Thank you for that. I very much hope that we maximize whatever opportunity we have right now to ensure that those values are imbued in the promotional assessment process. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chief Shedd. Appreciate that very much. Jared, is there anything further about the DPD promotional schedule?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Jared before we move on? Okay. Thank you. The last item is D, departmental updates and announcements.
I think that the number one update and announcement I want to share with you, I hope that you all see from the many things that we're involved in, that we are busy, and that we're doing a lot of different things at the same time, and trying to do some things differently at the same time while doing some things the old way at the same time too. So we got a lot of different moving parts, but we're excited and we're encouraged by it. And so thank you all again for your feedback and your questions. I think they're directional for me. And so with that, I will stand for any questions or anything directed to me, but that concludes my updates and announcements, Mr. Chair.
Well, Jared, I think I can say on behalf of the entire board, there's a lot of progress being made in some areas that have been problem areas for the city for quite a while. And that's very encouraging. And I'm glad to see the interaction between civil service and other departments in addressing some of those needs that the city clearly has that we've read about in the newspapers, et cetera. So we're making significant progress. And I appreciate all the work you and everybody on civil service has been doing. Just two other things. Gwen and Kendall, we're going to miss you very much. We may have another meeting, not sure yet, depending how board appointments go at the next council meeting or two. But I know I can also speak on behalf of everybody, and if anybody else wants to say anything, they certainly can. But you all have been a delight to work with, and I hope that even though our association through the Civil Service Board may end in a month or so, that our associations with you will not end just because of the end of your tenure on the Civil Service Board. You guys have been great. Gwen, I particularly have a shout out to you for all your work on the civil service rules. You have kept Shane and me in line on occasion. So thank you very much for that. You guys will be missed.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I just want to tell you that it has been an honor to serve on this board. I have loved working with all of the board members and the civil service staff and Jared. Y'all have been wonderful. I'm as a former employee, I knew about civil service, but I really had no idea. And this has been a really enlightening experience for me. And I really have enjoyed learning and expanding my knowledge about civil service and the importance of the civil service department and the work that they do toward helping improving the operation of the city of Dallas and improving the lives of the citizens. So I have been so impressed being on this board, actually seeing the inner workings of the civil service department and its staff and this board. And thank you so much for your leadership, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Jared, and all of your capable staff for its wonderful work in helping the city of Dallas move forward.
And I would just like to
thank you,
the
Gwen.
sentiments of Gwen. It's just been such a great opportunity. My only regret is that we haven't been able to meet in person as often as whenever I first started. Yeah, it has been a lot more fun than I had expected. Whenever I was first given my large training book. I certainly did not anticipate having fun on this board. But you all have been very enjoyable people to have the opportunity to serve with. And thank you, Jared, and the staff for all of the work that y'all do in the department. You know, you're making huge progress in the department, and it will make very tangible difference in the lives of the people who live in Dallas, their health, their safety, and I'm really appreciative to that work that y'all do day to day.
Well, Kendall and Gwen, we will definitely have you back for a plaque or something in the near future. We have no idea when that will be. Sometime before I go off the board, I hope. But we will try to get that and have y'all, we'll welcome y'all back sometime, and we'll all, one day, I hope soon, we'll all be back together in person.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I want to take a moment just to thank both Gwendolyn and Kendall for the wonderful work, and it's been a pleasure to work with both of you. You'll be well missed, but thank you for your service to the Dallas Civil Service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Newman.
Thank you all.
If there is nothing further, the time is now 11:10 a.m. and we will adjourn this meeting. Everybody take care and stay safe and healthy out there, okay?
Yeah.
See everybody
All
later.
right.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
everybody, for
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Gwen, I got your doodle.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.